So there's another question related to this, that how, this is by Deepak Sen. He says how China contained COVID-19 to spread all over the country. In other countries, fresh outbreaks are seen after months. Is China hiding information? If yes, what is their motive? So you have already answered
Hmm.
how they are containing. But do you still think that there is a motive behind what they did? Like they did not inform,
So,
before that such a
so the
virus has already spread, which
so
can lead
first
to a
of all, first
pandemic.
of all, we have to understand the setup of the Chinese government. The Chinese government is a one-party government, okay, and they have no free media. There is no like anti-government or pro-government. There is just one body of media. I think Global Times, CGTV, and couple of media houses, and they are all government mouthpieces. So the whole setup of China, just like previous Soviet Union, is propaganda. So they want to project an image on the world. They look, we are good, everything is fine here. They want to project that image. So that's why, that is the initial reason why they didn't want to, you know, say that we have a virus like this. They want to cover it up as long as possible. But in a democracy, in a countries like India, US, or Europe, that can't happen because the media is free. If there is a virus, people will know. In China, there is China. The whole point of China covering it up is so that they can portray a, you know, a hunky dory. Everything is well, kind of a national image. That's all.
So that is the only motive, to
That is
protect
the
the
only reason.
image, or there is some other motive as
That
well?
is the only motive. Like that is the only motive that that is publicly known, that I know. I don't know what's going on internally. Obviously, I'm not part of the government, or I'm not part of any intelligence agency, so I don't know what's going on inside there. But that's the only motive I can see as a observer, as someone who is reading about this stuff. The only motive I can see from now.
So Tathagata Haldar has asked a lot of questions, so we'll take one of his questions. Um, India, so he has just suggested some topics. So one of the topics is India-China relation, economy, GDP.
Oh, first of all, India-China relations. The thing with India-China relation is, if we look at the China relations for the last, let's say, 60 70 years, India and China have a trade of over $100 billion. Okay, and the trade is mostly very heavy on Chinese side because we export a lot of things from China. Now, obviously, we know India's GDP is like almost one third of China. We all know that, and more and regarding and India-China relations is always, China has always been like the big brother. It's like the bully of this region. So we know China obviously funds Pakistan to, fund terrorism in India. We all know this. They are pro Pakistan. They obviously, during the Kashmir issue, they raised the Kashmir issue in UN just to diminish India diplomatically. We all know these things. Even though we have a lot of trade with China, China was actually a friend with India. It was kind of like a semi Cold War kind of a situation with China. Now, when it comes to military, the thing with Indians need to understand is we shouldn't equate China's economic power with military power. They may be really a huge economic power, but the military still lags in a lot of places. First of all, in the last 50 years, China hasn't won a war. The last time they fought a war was in 1979, which was against Vietnam, and they lost pretty badly. Second thing is, if you're comparing Indian and Chinese military, you have to understand that China has a lot of borders with a lot of countries. So China has borders with Russia, and with Mongolia. China has borders with South Korea. They have issues in the South China Sea. So the forces are dispersed. So if we are looking at the current situation during the standoff, if there is a limited scale conflict, touch wood, happens. If currently there's a conflict with India and China, I can, without going into a lot of details, I can very honestly say India has an upper hand when it comes to a small scale conflict in Ladakh. Reason being, if we just go by the number of troops, China's number of troops in Ladakh is around 175,000, while India's 225,000, because the other troops are engaged in other disputes in all over the country. Secondly, if you look, they have only four air bases in the Tibet region, and all those air bases are over 13,000 feet high. And Indian air bases are much in a lower height, which means is, because the Chinese air bases are in such a high altitude, their fighter jets won't be able to take full payload. By payload, I mean full missile, fuel, and everything. So they can only take 60% of their whole payload, and they have to constantly refuel those airplanes to do sorties. But India doesn't have that issue. India can easily take off with their full payload and use the Himalaya as a use the Himalaya as a screen to attain air dominance. More importantly, China. More importantly, if you look at the Indian air bases, it's in Ladakh. It's in form of an arc. So India can actually use all of its assets, and all of its air bases, all of its fighter planes against China. But China can only use 30 to 40% of its assets because others are busy engaged in Russia, South China Sea, then Taiwan, all of these places. So that's a huge possibility. That's a huge advantage India has. Now, if a full-scale war broke out, by full scale, see, they were to understand there are three types of war. There are skirmishes, which every day happens in the line of control with Pakistan, normal firing and stuff. There are conflicts like Kargil. Kargil was a conflict, meaning there is only one front in the war. There is one place and the war is happening there. So that's called a conflict. Now, what is a war? War means there are multiple fronts. There are multiple places where firefighting is going on. Now, if during a skirmish and a conflict, India has the upper hand because India's military in a conflict can easily India's military is better trained. We have more experience. We can easily topple the Chinese. Now, if there is a war, that's when economy comes to play, and that's when numbers come to play. That's where Chinese will have the advantage. But then in a war, there are a lot of factors like alliances and stuff. So
So the next question is by Deepak Sen. He says, why they raise the border issues with India when India is going through the worst situation of this pandemic? Is it the first signal over China's mastery?
the first of all, we have to understand how the Chinese is a expansion. China is an expansionist and imperialistic country. So so it doesn't just want its own parts. It wants to expand this country to the 14th century Qing dynasty. Like we have Akhand Bharat, they have a concept of Akhand China. So they want to restore their China to the 14th century dynasty. Now, the issue here is they are not just in a conflict with India. They are in a conflict with Taiwan. They're conflict with Japan, South Korea, US, and South China Sea. So there are two reasons. There are obviously multiple reasons, but I can only go into two reasons right now because otherwise the video will be really long. The first reason is
No, you can. I can cut it. Not a problem.
না এখন অনেক বিশাল বড় হয়ে যাবে অনেক বিশেষ it's huge. There is a reason I'm not going there.
Okay.
The first reason is you have to understand what's going on inside China. Now, Chinese people, there have been protests in China, inside mainland China. Now, protests in China is a very weird thing. Not really. You don't hear about protests in China. Why were there protests? People were not happy. Were not happy with how Xi Jinping handled the virus. Even inside the Communist Party of China, people are not happy with how Xi Jinping is handling the whole situation. Now, what is the best way to make sure that there is no dissent among your people? What is the best way? The best way is to make sure there is a rise in nationalism. So how do you inflict the spark of nationalism in a country? By involving in border conflicts with the other countries, which is so now what China is doing is so that they can divert the attention of their people from this COVID-19 situation. They are picking up fights with multiple places, with India, with Japan, with South Korea, with Taiwan, with US, so that there's a rise of nationalism. So people don't look at the virus, instead they look at, oh look, we are in war, so we are in a warless situation, so let's support our government, support our country. So it's a tactic to divert their attention. That's one thing. Now, second thing, why specifically India? To understand what's going on in Ladakh, we have to really go back to the Indian Ocean, to go to the opposite side of the Indian Ocean. Now, 60 to 70% of China's trade goes to the Indian Ocean, and the Indian Ocean is completely dominated by the Indian Navy. So the route is they go from the Indian Ocean to there's a place called the Malacca Strait. Malacca Strait is a very short, small like body of water through which you have to go towards the Gwadar port in Iran. That's the entry point to Central Asia. Now, all Chinese trade goes through there. All oil and all the trading thing happens from Indian Ocean through Malacca Strait through the Gwadar port in Iran. Gwadar port is a port which China bought from Pakistan. Now, there is complete Indian Navy dominance in the Malacca Strait in the Indian Ocean. So during any warlike situation, India can easily choke the Malacca Strait, and which will immediately stop the whole of Chinese economy, hold the import and export of oil. That's a huge disadvantage. Basically, you can say India is literally on China's jugular. So what China has done is China has figured out an alternate route. So we know about the CPEC, right? There's a China-Pakistan economic corridor, which goes through POK, Gilgit-Baltistan, and then into Afghanistan, crosses the Durand line, and goes into Central Asia. Now that is one of the way China thinks that they can, during a warlike situation, they can use that route instead of the sea route. Now, if they take now here's where Ladakh comes in. If China can take over the current Ladakh, which India has, they have a easy access to POK. They have a straight access to POK. They can easily get into the CPEC route and go through Central Asia and go into Afghanistan, cross the Durand line, and into Central Asia. That's basically the reason. Easy access to CPEC. That's basically the reason they want Ladakh. So that's why they're currently in a conflict.
So can you brief us on what happened in Galwan and why were the 20 soldiers?
Before answering that question, let me just clarify something. Neither me nor anyone else is currently in Galwan. Okay. So whatever information I have is information I gathered from the government spokesperson. Also, I have some contacts with some ex people of the Indian Army. I've spoken with them. I'm giving you the information what have they been given me. Now I have no access to Galwan, obviously. This is all what have they told to me. I'm telling you. So first of all, we understand the geography of Galwan. The Galwan plateau is present on the north side of the Slok River. Okay, you know the Slok River. Opposite side of the Slok River is the Galwan plateau. Now there are multiple petrol points in Galwan. PP14, PP13, PP15, like that. So what are these petrol points? So the line of actual control, which is the border, India has two types of border. India has a line of actual control and the line of control. Line of control is Pakistan, where there is a proper fencing in place to make sure that where Pakistan is, where India is. There's a proper UN sanctioned border. Now, what is LAC? Line of actual control doesn't have a proper demarcated border. It's a perceptional border, which means India thinks the border ends 15 kilometers into China. Chinese thinks the border is 15 kilometers into India. There is a whole issue with perception. So now, what is the issue with Galwan? So Galwan, where the 20 Indian soldiers achieved Shahadat, was the point called PP14. The PP14 is kind of a gray zone where both China and India used to patrol there. And whenever Indians used to patrol there, Chinese used to hold a banner saying, "You are in Chinese territory, go back." Whenever Chinese people used to enter there, India used to hold a banner saying, "You have entered Indian territory, please go back." This used to be the norm for the last 50 years, because you have to realize India and China didn't fire a single bullet from 1967. Okay. So now recently what happened? Recently, because of all the tension, there was a brigadier level meeting. So the brigadier level meeting, it was like they came to a conclusion that both parties will move away from PP14. That there would be no structures present in PP14. So on 15th June, 3 or 4 people of the Bihar regiment went to PP14 to check if the Chinese had, moved back. So when they went there, they realized that there were still Chinese tents present there. So they went back. Inside, went back to their camp, and they brought the commanding officer, Colonel Babu. He went there to talk with the Chinese at what happened. You should move back. He came with around 10. He came with around 10-15 people, and as soon as he went there, he saw that he was surrounded with at least 100 to 150 Chinese. And when Colonel Babu started burning their tents, he got attacked. He got attacked by clubs, baseball clubs wrapped in iron chains. He got attacked with that, and he immediately he died there. So the thing with Indian Army regiments is, if the commanding officer dies, the whole regiment loses their minds. So as soon as the commanding officer died, They went back to their post, and then what happened was they sent a unit called a Ghatak Commando. Now, what the Ghatak Commando is called the tip of the spear. They are used in small numbers to destroy enemy formations. So these 50 to 60 Ghatak commandos were sent in, and they went to there with bare hands. They broke Chinese skulls, they snapped their necks, and they killed a lot of Chinese. And after that, again Chinese sent in reinforcements. There were over, I think, 350 Chinese. Indians also sent the reinforcements. So ultimately there was a clash between at least 450 to at least around 700 people with 350 with around close to 500 to 600 Chinese and 2 to 300 Indians. So in this clash, what happened was, since the Galwan PP14 is a very small, thin strip of land, and as you know, with mountains, the soil was not that hard. So there was a little bit of an avalanche, due to which a lot of the soldiers from both sides fell into the Galwan River in the cold minus 25 degrees Celsius, minus 25 degrees. They fell into the river, and most of them died of hypothermia. So that was and because it was a night, so rescue operations for both Chinese and India couldn't be done at night. So when they went back in the morning, there were at least 20 soldiers of Indian Army who was, announced as martyred. Now with the Chinese, with the number of casualties Chinese side, the China Global Times Chinese mouthpiece has like admitted that they have lost people, but they haven't given out the numbers. As we all know, China never gives out their numbers. But there are reports from US intelligence that at least more than 35 Chinese were killed. There are reports from Indian Army that more than 35 to 43 people were killed from the Chinese side. So that is basically the brief. So there is another front, and there is another front which is opening up, where there is another front of conflict, which is called the finger one to finger. I think everyone heard about the finger one to finger issue. So north of the Galwan River are basically landscapes like our knuckles. Like we have knuckles, there are 8 fingers. Finger 1 to finger 4 is controlled by the Indians. Finger 4 to finger 8 is controlled by the Chinese. So Chinese have done a huge fortification, huge construction on the border of finger 4. Now currently the issue is there is a lot of misinformation going on. A lot of people are saying, oh, Chinese have entered here. A lot of people are saying, no, Chinese have never entered. There's a lot of misinformation going on. So I would urge people to listen to what the Indian Army's official statements are giving, not to random people on Twitter. You don't need to, because no one is currently in Galwan. The only people in Galwan are the Indian Army. So listen to them. Listen to what the Indian Army spokesperson is saying, and take that as the truth, and not what any other people are saying.
It's not that you had a choice, but anyway, you were very much informative and detailed. I think many of us do not know so much detail, so
thank you.
Really glad to know, especially the Galwan situation. I think everybody needs to know about that. So my question to you is, now you have a choice. So if there are many more questions, would you be interested in doing another video?
Definitely. Otherwise, there will be a fight between you and me. I don't want that.
No. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, you can put it down in the comments below. Also, do subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon to get notification
for the
every time I
YouTube app,
upload.
and never miss an update from All India Bakchod.
Also follow me on Instagram, and you can follow him on Instagram as well, although I don't know if he's too active there. So I'll put all of the information on the screen. And yeah, thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.
Follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook.
Yeah,
Facebook
follow him on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'll give all the details below. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Good night. Stay safe.
Tata, baby, go.
Bye.